The night my dad passed away, I called Emily Carter over and over again, but she kept brushing me off, saying she was stuck at work. I believed her because that's what people in love do, right? We trust, even when it hurts. But then I saw something that made my whole world crumble. Her personal assistant, Ryan Kim, posted a story to his private close friends listia, the one where you think only a select few can see it. Guess who the lucky viewer was? Me. There they were, standing side by the riverside, fingers intertwined, watching fireworks light up the sky like nothing else in the world mattered. I stared at that photo for what felt like an eternity. I knew those hands. I kissed those hands, held them through every storm. And now they were laced with someone else's. That was the exact moment something inside me snapped. No screaming, no accusations, just silence. I looked down at my phone, still ringing unanswered in her contact, and I knew I was done. But of course, life's cruel punchline wasn't over yet. When the doctor came out of the ER, the look on his face said it all. I'm sorry. We did everything we could. My knees buckled, but I didn't cry. Not then. I think the grief froze me. I don't even remember how I signed the paperwork or who I called next. I just know I ended up in the hallway, phone screen lighting up with the words, "My wife is calling." My thumb hovered over the answer button, the ringtone echoing louder than my thoughts. When I finally picked up, Emily's voice came through, brisk and annoyed. "Why'd you take so long to answer?" I wanted to scream, to tell her I'd just watched my father die. But all I could manage was, something happened. There was a pause, then a snippy. "What happened? Where are you?" And you know what? I didn't even want to explain anymore. I just told her, "Nothing. Warm the milk yourself. I'm not coming home tonight." That small gesture, heating her milk every night no matter how late she came home, used to be my way of saying, "I'm still here." And now I realized how damn pathetic it was. The moment I pulled that comfort away, she got uncomfortable. "Where are you? I'll come pick you up." I nearly laughed. Was she serious? "No need," I said. "You've been working so hard. Get some sleep." She hesitated, clearly trying to figure out if I knew. Maybe she could feel it in my voice. Something was off. Something was over. When she hung up, I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, remembering the last time I'd seen someone that lost. Emily was 18 when her dad killed himself. Her mom had died earlier, some gambling debt gone wrong, beat up by loan sharks. Emily's father worked brutal hours in the underground boxing scene just to keep them afloat, trying to dig out of the financial hell her mom left behind. When I found her that day, bathroom door cracked open, her eyes blank, staring at her father's body. I didn't think. I just covered her eyes and pulled her into my arms. She didn't say a word, just leaned on me like she'd shattered completely. That was the first time she ever clung to me like I was her only lifeline. "James, you're all I have left," she whispered. I promised I'd never leave her, that I'd be her family, that she wouldn't be alone ever again. And now, years later, I was the one sitting alone in a hospital corridor, with no one to hold me while my world collapsed. And the person who should have been by my side? She was out with another man, celebrating something while my heart fell apart. I didn't cry. Couldn't. I'd already dried out every tear in front of my dad's lifeless body. What was the point now? Slowly, I pulled out my phone and dialed Nathan Reed, my best friend and the only person I could think to trust with something this big. "Hey, Nate," I said, voice hollow. "Can you help me draft a divorce agreement?" He went dead silent on the other end, but I didn't explain. I just sat there, staring into nothing, thinking about how a love story that spanned over a decade could disintegrate in one night. The next morning, I went home. Emily had already left for work. I didn't bother texting her. I didn't even want to see her face. I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. I left behind every single gift she ever gave me. Didn't even glance twice. Clothes, documents, essentials, that's it. Before I left, I sent her a message. "Business trip. Be gone for a few days." Predictably, no reply. She was probably out having brunch with Ryan Kim somewhere, sipping mimosas and pretending none of this existed. I didn't care. I headed to the airport, my mind numb. I flew back to my hometown to handle the funeral alone. I didn't tell any of our mutual friends. I didn't want her showing up to play the grieving wife. It was better this way. 1 week later, I was back at the airport, luggage in hand, ready to disappear for good. I planned to meet with my mentor overseas, someone who'd offered me a research position years ago, before I gave it all up for Emily. Back then, I had a full ride to a prestigious institute in Boston, but I stayed behind. Why? Because I didn't want to leave her. Because I thought love was about sacrifice. Turns out, love doesn't mean much when the other person already checked out. My phone buzzed. Nathan again. James, are you serious about this? About everything? Yeah, I replied. I've thought it through. You sure? I mean, going abroad? Leaving everything. Everything that mattered already left me. He didn't say anything for a while, then finally sighed. All right, man. Just promise me one thing. Didn't look back. I promised. But fate wasn't done screwing with me. As I stepped out into the pickup lane, I saw her Emily, standing there in a cream coat, hair tied up, looking around like she was waiting for someone. My heart lurched. Was she here for me? Did she know my flight time? I ducked, pulled my cap lower, adjusted my mask. Nah, couldn't be. Probably just coincidence. Or maybe Ryan was on a flight. Still, something made me pause. That tiny, masochistic part of me still wanted her to be there for me. And as I passed by, she suddenly grabbed my wrist. James? She said, almost accusingly. I blinked. What? You saw me. Why'd you pretend not to? I thought you were waiting for someone else, I said, voice cold. You're my husband. Who else would I be here for? She snapped. I held back a laugh. You sure about that? Her face twitched, and I could see she wasn't expecting this version of me. The calm one. The one who didn't beg. She hesitated, then added, Ryan only got into that accident because of me. His condition relapsed. I couldn't leave him alone. Right? I said dryly. You're his boss, after all. Just being professional. Huh? She winced. I used to fight about this, used to yell and cry, asking her why she treated me like I was disposable and him like he hung the moon. I stopped fighting because I got tired. And the day I stopped, she told me coldly, enough already. So now I used her own words against her. Enough already. Her face crumpled. She opened her mouth to speak, but I was already walking away, dragging my suitcase behind me like dead weight. I didn't turn back. Emily followed me, heels clicking against the concrete, her voice rising behind me, but I didn't stop. I wasn't trying to start a scene in the middle of the airport, and frankly, I had nothing left to say. She caught up, breath short, and planted herself in front of me again. James, don't do this, she said, her voice quivering with something that sounded like guilt or maybe just panic. I looked at her, at the woman I used to believe in with every ounce of my being, and I couldn't even summon anger anymore. Just a dull ache. You already did it, I replied. She blinked, stunned. I don't think she was expecting me to be this calm. It's funny how people only start to panic when you stop reacting the way they expect you to. If you have something to say, I added, say it. If not, move. Ryan's accident really wasn't planned. He called me that night, said he was dizzy, and she trailed off. You just what? I asked, voice flat. Thought fireworks by the river were more important than answering my call while my father was dying? Her mouth opened, then shut. She looked cornered, and for the first time, I saw something like real shame flicker in her eyes. But shame doesn't undo abandonment. I didn't know, she began, and I cut her off. Because you didn't care to ask. That hit harder than I expected. She actually recoiled. I stepped past her, hailed a cab, and left her standing there as the wind picked up around her. I told the driver to take me downtown. I had no destination, just needed space. Some silence. I checked into a hotel with a fake smile, told the front desk I was in town for business, and collapsed onto the bed like a corpse. That night I couldn't sleep. My phone kept buzzing, mostly from Nathan, checking in. I finally texted back, still breathing. He replied with a meme. Classic. At least he hadn't changed. I didn't hear from Emily again that night. The next day, I met up with a lawyer Nathan recommended. A friend of his, sharp guy, young, no BS attitude. We went over the draft I'd sketched out. Clean split, no alimony, just closure. I didn't want her money, her sympathy, or her pity. I just wanted out. You sure about this? The lawyer asked, adjusting his tie. You seem like you're still processing. I've been processing for years, I replied, signing my name on the bottom of the document. This is the only part that makes sense. After the meeting, I went back to the hotel, took a long shower, and booked my flight overseas. My mentor back in Boston replied almost immediately. Still got your spot, he wrote. Let me know when you land. Felt good to be wanted for once. I was packing my things the next morning when I got a call from Nathan. You're not gonna believe this, he said, voice tight. Emily's looking for you. She showed up at my place. I paused mid-zip. What did you tell her? Nothing. I didn't even let her in. Just said you were gone. I chuckled. Thanks for having my back. Dude, he said after a beat. You really went through hell, huh? Still walking through it? I murmured. But yeah, Emily must have known something was up, because she blew up my phone the night before. Calls, messages, voice notes, stuff like, we need to talk, and don't leave like this, and I was wrong. Too little, too late. I turned off the phone mid-flight and didn't turn it back on for a week. Boston hit different. The air was cleaner, the silence deeper. My mentor picked me up himself, handed me a key card to a studio apartment, and said, start whenever you're ready. The lab's open 24/7. I dove into work like a man trying to drown, and for a while it worked. I stopped checking messages, stopped remembering what her voice sounded like, stopped replaying every red flag I ignored, until Nathan sent me a message out of nowhere. You need to see this. Attached was a photo Emily, at some fancy gala, standing alone while everyone else mingled. Hair tied up, dress impeccable, but her expression? Lost. Hollow. She's been asking about you non-stop, he wrote. She knows you went abroad. Wants to talk. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Months passed. I got promoted at the lab. Co-authored a paper. My name started showing up in conferences. The ache faded, replaced by quiet resolve. I rebuilt myself from the ground up. But Emily? She unraveled. Nathan said she stopped showing up to social events. Fired Ryan Kim without warning. Rumors swirled scandal, betrayal, stock dips. One tabloid claimed she'd shown up drunk to a board meeting, muttering my name under her breath. Poetic, really. I heard she started frequenting places we used to go, cafes, bookstores, that one park by the lake where we carved our initials into a bench. She even visited my father's grave. Nathan was there by coincidence. Said she sat there for hours whispering apologies. Still, I didn't go back. Not until a year later when I had to return for an academic summit. I told no one, kept it low, but somehow she knew. When I stepped out of the venue, she was there, waiting. James, she whispered, eyes red, voice shaking. Please, I didn't speak, just looked at her, really looked. Her makeup was minimal, hair loosely tied. She looked like the girl I once knew, not the CEO who wore power like armor. I'm sorry, she said. I was wrong. I didn't realize until it was too late. It was always too late, I replied softly. Even when I begged you, you weren't listening. Can we? She started, but I raised a hand. Emily, we're done. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. She nodded, tears spilling over. But I'll wait, she whispered. Even if you never come back, I'll wait. I turned and walked back inside. I didn't look back. Maybe she waited outside the whole evening. Maybe she still walks by that bench with our initials. Maybe she'll regret this for the rest of her life. But me? I've learned how to live without her. Part 3 of this story doesn't begin with a reunion. It begins with a man who chose peace over pain. And for the first time in years, I'm finally breathing again. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. That after walking away from Emily outside the venue, I'd closed the last door I had ever left open for her. But I should have known better. People like her don't give up easily, not when they realize too late what they've lost. It started with missed calls, unknown numbers, then emails to my university inbox which she had no business having. Just 5 minutes, one of them said. I won't ask for anything else. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded it to spam and kept my head down. I focused on my research, my lectures, my students, anything that kept me from spiraling back into memories that used to tear me apart. But then I made a mistake. I flew back to attend my dad's first memorial service. Quietly. No public notice, no social media check-ins. Just a quick trip home, one night at a hotel, and a stop at the cemetery to lay flowers. And somehow she found me. I was walking out of St. Michael's Memorial Park, heart heavy but clear, when I saw her across the street. Emily, dressed in black like she belonged there, like she'd lost someone too. I froze, not because I missed her, but because she looked like a ghost of the woman I used to know. She walked toward me like she had every right to be there, like the past hadn't happened. James, she said breathlessly, like my name was something she hadn't spoken in years but had never stopped craving. Can we talk? There's nothing left to say, I answered, trying to move past her. But she blocked my path and held out a stack of papers. Divorce paperwork. The same ones I'd already signed and left at our place a lifetime ago. I stared at her, confused. What is this? She shoved them into my chest. You never mailed them. I blinked. Because I assumed you would. Or at least your lawyer. I wanted to give them to you myself. Her voice was shaking now. I wanted to look you in the eye. And say what, exactly? I asked. That you're finally letting me go? Or that you want me to stay? I don't know, she admitted, tears forming. Both. I almost laughed. Almost. But instead I sighed. Let's go to the county clerk's office and get this over with. That was when her mask cracked. She grabbed my hand like a lifeline and said, No, not like this. Then how? I said, pulling away. You want to keep me dangling? Hoping? I'm done, Emily. She drove me in silence after that. It was probably the quietest car ride we'd ever shared. No music. No small talk. Just two people who used to know everything about each other. Now strangers in the same space. But halfway there, she pulled over, slammed the brakes, and looked at me like she was unraveling right in front of me. Why are you doing this? She snapped. Why are you so eager to leave? Did you cheat on me? Did you meet someone else? I blinked at her, stunned. Are you serious? She was. She actually believed the only way I could move on from her was by replacing her. No, I said, keeping my voice steady. You don't need to cheat when you've been emotionally abandoned for years. Her face turned red. So this is about Ryan again? No, I said coldly. It's about you, choosing him, over me, over and over again. He was just a secretary. Then why did he have access to your phone? Why did he post private moments that only I could see? That shut her up. I could see the guilt swimming in her eyes. But it was too late. That night outside the ER, watching fireworks on someone else's Instagram, while my father took his last breath, that memory was seared into my bones. James, she whispered, I didn't know your dad was dying, because you never picked up the phone. That hit harder than anything else I could have said. She turned away, biting her lip. I'm sorry. I forgive you, I said. She looked up, hope flickering. But that doesn't mean I'll forget. Or stay. Her face fell. But she didn't argue. She just drove me back into the city. I told her to drop me at the coffee shop near my lawyer's office. She didn't ask why. Probably didn't want to know. I stepped out, said nothing more, and walked away. As I waited for my appointment, sipping bitter black coffee, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a moment, then answered. James Walker? A familiar voice said. It's Ryan. Of course it was. I should have blocked him months ago. What do you want? I asked, tired. To meet. Man to man. You really think that's a good idea? You deserve an explanation. I agreed, not because I wanted to hear it, but because I wanted it recorded. If this guy was going to try something, I wanted receipts. We met at a corner booth of the same cafe. He looked too polished for someone who was supposedly fired. Hair perfect, watch expensive, attitude cocky. Let's get this over with, I said. He leaned in, voice low. You think Emily still loves you? I raised an eyebrow. You think she doesn't? She hesitates every time I ask her to be with me, he sneered. She can't move on because of you. So I'm going to fix that. Good luck, I said. I'm not part of this game anymore. But he was already pulling something from his coat pocket, a small voice recorder. He hit play. Emily's voice filled the air. I don't love him. I just feel guilty. That's all. My stomach twisted. It was old months ago, maybe during one of their late-night hangouts. She sounded cold. Clinical. Happy now? Ryan asked smugly. She's only been chasing you out of guilt. I'm the one who stayed. I looked at the recorder, then at him. That's your big move? A clipped sentence from God knows when. It's enough, he said. You'll be out of her life for good. I leaned in and smiled. You know what's really sad, Ryan? Even if that recording was true, she still left you. His face froze. She fired you. You played dirty and still lost. His smile cracked. This isn't over. It already is. I got up and left him there, fuming. Later that night, I forwarded the recording to my lawyer, just in case. Emily tried calling again the next morning, probably clueless to Ryan's stunt. I ignored her. That evening, she showed up outside my hotel. I knew because I saw her reflection in the glass door before I even stepped outside. James, she said, eyes red again. I fired him. I swear. I didn't know what he was doing behind my back. That doesn't change what's already broken, I said. I know, she whispered. But I can't fix it if you don't give me the chance. I stood there, torn between the man who once promised her forever and the man who had finally learned how to protect his peace. You have until tomorrow, I said. Sign the papers. Mail them. Or I will. Her breath caught, but she nodded. Okay. I turned and walked away, the sound of my own footsteps louder than her silence. Tomorrow would be the final chapter. And for the first time, I was the one writing it. The next morning felt unreal. Like the calm before a storm I'd already decided to walk through without flinching. I checked out of the hotel early, took a cab to the county clerk's office, and sat in the lobby with the divorce agreement in my hands. The weight of it both freeing and familiar. I had no expectations anymore. If she showed, fine. If she didn't, that was fine too. The point wasn't her choice. It was mine. And I'd already made it. 20 minutes later, Emily walked in. Hair tied back, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't slept, which was probably true. She looked around until her eyes landed on me, then slowly walked over like she wasn't sure I'd stay seated. Hey, she said quietly, as if we hadn't been shouting through silence for the past year. You came, I said, signing the last page without waiting for her to speak. She sat beside me and stared at the paper for a while before picking up the pen. Can I ask one thing before I sign? I didn't answer. She took that as a yes. Do you really not love me anymore? I exhaled slowly. It's not about love anymore, Emily. It's about respect. Trust. The kind of silence you gave me when I needed you most, that broke everything. She didn't cry. I could tell she wanted to, but she kept it in. She always kept things in until it was too late. Her hand shook as she signed her name. That was it. No dramatic outbursts. No second thoughts. Just two people who used to mean everything to each other, putting a legal period at the end of their story. When the clerk handed us each a copy, I stood up and extended a hand. I wish you peace. She grabbed my hand, but instead of shaking it, she clutched it tight. James, she whispered. Please, do you forgive me? I looked down at her fingers gripping mine, and I remembered the first time she ever held my hand years ago, in that bathroom where she found her dad's body. Back then, she clung to me like I was her last anchor to this world, and I promised I'd never leave her. Now, she was the one adrift, and I was finally cutting the rope. I gently pulled my hand free and said, Yeah, I forgive you. Her eyes lit up for a second. But forgiveness doesn't mean we have a future, I finished. It just means I'm letting go of the past. I left her standing in that government office, holding a piece of paper that ended everything we were, everything we could have been. I didn't look back. That night, I boarded a plane back to Boston. My heart didn't ache the way I thought it would. There was no last-minute regret, no what-ifs, no secret hopes. Just relief. Pure, clean relief. Like I'd finally stepped out of a burning house I'd been trying to decorate. The lab welcomed me back like I'd never left. My mentor offered me a full-time position, and I threw myself into the work with everything I had. And for a while, life was quiet, peaceful. I stopped flinching every time my phone lit up. I stopped wondering what she was doing. I even stopped checking our old photos, which I'd foolishly kept in a hidden album on my phone, telling myself I just wasn't ready to delete them. Until one night I did. All of them. Deleted. Gone. Emily, though she didn't move on so easily. Nathan called a few weeks later, said she'd been asking about me. Again. He didn't want to get involved but figured I should know. She's not doing great, man, he said. Like, at all. What does that mean? I asked. It means she's been showing up at every spot you used to go. The coffee shop, the bookstore, even the cemetery. She just sits there. Waiting. Hoping, I guess. For what? I said. I don't even live there anymore. Nathan sighed. I don't think logic is part of it anymore. She's unraveling, James. I warned her, I said. She made her choices. I know. But maybe she thought you never would. That hit harder than I liked. Because for a long time I didn't think I would either. I stayed through so much. Held on through so many red flags. Maybe she thought I'd always keep doing that. But the thing about patience is it runs out. Nathan also told me something else. Something I didn't expect. She fired Ryan, he said. Like for real. He's been bad-mouthing her all over the place. Said she abandoned her husband for a pretty face and ruined her company for it. Clients pulled out. Stocks dropped. Her name's trash in the industry now. Sounds like karma, I said. Yeah, but it's still ugly. She drinks now. A lot. Shows up to meetings late. Sometimes not at all. And every time she's drunk, guess whose name she's crying? I didn't ask. I already knew. But I wasn't moved by it. Not like I used to be. The guilt had already passed its expiration date. Still, part of me remembered how strong she used to be. How much I loved that version of her. And it's always harder watching someone destroy themselves when you remember who they were at their best. But I wasn't a savior anymore. I had already done my time in that role, and it cost me everything. Weeks later, I returned to the States to give a talk at a tech summit. It was supposed to be low-key, but somehow she found out. She always found out. I stepped out of the car, headed for the hotel ballroom, and there she was standing near the valet, eyes red like she hadn't slept in days, hands trembling. James, she said, voice raw. Please, just a moment. Why? I asked, not cruel, just honest. What's left to say? That I'm sorry, she said. That I was blind. That I hurt you more than I ever meant to. And that I regret everything. Every minute I didn't choose you. I stood still, not because I was swayed, but because I wanted to remember this. Not for her, but for me. This version of her, the broken one, the honest one, this was the Emily I might have forgiven, if she had shown up sooner. I believe you, I said. Her face lit up. But it doesn't matter anymore. I've moved on. Her smile vanished. Don't say that, she whispered. Don't tell me it's really over. It was over the day you watched fireworks while I said goodbye to my dad. I said. You just didn't realize it yet. She cried then. No more pride, no more pretense. Just tears streaming down her face as people walked past, pretending not to notice. I'll wait, she choked. Even if you never come back, I'll wait. Then you'll be waiting alone, I said. And I walked inside. I didn't look back. Maybe that makes me heartless. Maybe not. But I know this. I gave her everything. My time. My loyalty. My love. And she gave it all away for someone who couldn't even hold it together when things got real. I had finally learned what self-respect looked like. And it looked like walking away from the woman I once loved without needing to be saved from it. And as I stood before that crowd, giving my lecture on innovation and progress, I realized something important. Sometimes the biggest innovation isn't in technology. It's in ourselves. And my upgrade was cutting her out for good. They say time heals everything, but what they don't tell you is that healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means learning how to carry the scar without picking at it every day. And by the time I gave my closing remarks at the summit, I knew I had mastered that art. I shook hands with professors and industry CEOs, took photos with wide-eyed students asking for career advice, and when I stepped outside into the late fall air, crisp and biting, I half expected her to be standing there again, arms crossed, eyes red, ready to try one more time, but she wasn't, and that was a strange kind of relief. I hailed a cab, sat in the back seat staring out the window as we pulled onto the highway, and I realized I didn't feel empty anymore, I felt clean. like someone had finally drained the poison from my system and let me breathe for the first time in years. I spent that night at a quiet inn near the countryside. No interruptions, no messages, no memories clawing their way back up. The next morning, I took a long walk through the woods behind the inn and ended up at a small pond, frozen at the edges, quiet as hell. I stood there for a while, thinking about nothing, and it was everything I needed. When I got back to my room, I had 3 missed calls from Nathan and 1 message that just said, "You're not going to believe this," which was never a good sign. I called him back while throwing on a clean shirt. "She's gone," he said before I even spoke, and my heart stopped for a second. "Gone," I echoed. Not sure what he meant. My first instinct was something dramatic, like she disappeared or no. No way, but Nathan sighed and clarified. "Not like that, man. Calm down. She left the city, quit her job, packed up everything, even sold her place." I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. "She said anything to you?" "Nah, just told a few board members she needed to start over." Whatever that means, but from what I'm hearing, she's gone ghost. No one knows where she went, not even her assistant. I didn't know how to feel: relieved, unsettled, maybe both. "Do you think she did it because of me?" I asked, and Nathan snorted. "Everything she's done the past year's been about you, whether she admits it or not." I didn't say anything after that, just thanked him and hung up, my mind oddly quiet. I didn't chase after her. I didn't ask around, because I had already learned my lesson: some goodbyes need to stay closed, and I had spent too long carrying a version of her in my mind that didn't exist anymore. The woman I loved died the moment she chose silence over standing by me, and this new version, whatever she was becoming, had to figure herself out without me. Months passed and life kept moving forward. I got offered a senior research position back in California and moved west, closer to the coast. The sun, the sand, a new start. My apartment overlooked the ocean, and some days I'd sit out on the balcony with a beer and a breeze and think about how far I'd come from hospital hallways filled with grief to boardrooms filled with accolades. I wasn't the same man who once begged his wife to come home early or heat up a cup of milk just so she'd feel cared for. I was building something now, and this time I was doing it for me. But just when you think a chapter's fully closed, life sends you one final page. I got an email one morning from a law firm back in New York. Apparently, Emily had transferred the deed of our old condo to my name. No note, no explanation, just paperwork. I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure whether it was guilt, pity, or something else. I called the firm and confirmed it wasn't a scam. Then I did what I knew. I had signed it over to charity, donated it to a veteran housing nonprofit in my dad's name. If she was trying to give me something back, she could unknowingly help someone else. I didn't know her closure anymore, and I certainly didn't want her ghost living rent-free in my property. Nathan texted me the next day. "Damn. Cold move." I replied, "Not cold. Clean." A week later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. I almost tossed it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was from her. Of course it was. Her handwriting was as familiar as the back of my own hand. "James," it began, "I've started over, not just in a new city but inside myself. I've spent the last year understanding how much I broke you, and how much of myself I shattered in the process. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness again. I think you already gave it to me. Even if I didn't deserve it, I'm writing to say thank you. Thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to be loved. Thank you for walking away when I didn't deserve to be held onto. I hope you're well. I hope your father would be proud of the man you've become, and I hope someday you find someone who never makes you question your worth again. I'll be rooting for you, always, Emily." I folded the letter and put it in a drawer, not because I wanted to keep it, but because I needed to remind myself sometimes that even the people who break you can still bleed. I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I didn't smile. I just exhaled, like setting down a weight you didn't know you were still carrying. I hadn't heard from her since, and I didn't expect to. She had taken her story elsewhere, and I had finally taken back mine, and in the silence that followed, in the space where her name used to echo, I found something better than closure. I found peace. Part 6 wouldn't be about heartbreak anymore. It would be about rebirth, about choosing myself every damn day, no matter who failed to do it before. It's strange how life settles after the chaos, how the noise eventually fades into a kind of quiet that doesn't hurt anymore. Not because you forgot, but because you finally made peace with the fact that some things just weren't meant to last. I was in the middle of prepping for a conference in San Diego when I got another call from Nathan. The guy's always got a knack for picking the perfect moment to drop something unexpected. "Don't freak out," he started, never a good way to begin a sentence. "But Emily's in town." I paused mid-scroll through my slide deck. "Town? As in San Diego?" "Yeah, She's attending some sustainability summit across the street from yours. Different circles, but same venue, he added. Figured you'd want to know before it gets awkward. I didn't answer immediately. Just let that settle for a second. You think she's here because of me? I mean, no clue, he said. But if she shows up, don't punch anyone, all right? I laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because once upon a time the idea of being in the same building as her would have sent me spiraling. Now it barely moved the needle. I thanked him and hung up, heart steady, mind clear. I wasn't afraid of her anymore or what she represented. That part of my life had been burned, buried, and turned into soil for something better. The next morning at the hotel, I passed a familiar perfume in the elevator. Subtle, not overpowering, but immediately recognizable, and for the first time, I didn't turn to look, didn't chase the scent, didn't wonder if it was her. I let it pass. Like you do with old songs that used to wreck you but now barely make a dent. That evening after my keynote, I stepped out onto the balcony of the reception hall, drink in hand, the ocean breeze carrying away the echoes of clinking glasses and industry talk. That's when I heard the quiet click of heels behind me, followed by a voice I hadn't heard in months but could never mistake. I didn't know you'd be here, Emily said, standing beside me. Not too close, but close enough. Same. I replied without looking, taking a sip of my drink. How've you been? She asked, eyes studying me, like she was trying to find something that might still be hers. Alive, productive, peaceful, I said, not unkindly. You? She hesitated. Better now? I finally glanced at her. She looked older, not in a bad way, but in a way that suggested life had finally humbled her, taught her the lessons I learned the hard way long before she did. That letter? She said softly. I meant every word. I nodded. I know. Silence stretched between us, the kind that used to feel suffocating but now just felt neutral. I didn't come here for you, she added. But when I found out you were on the list of speakers, I almost left. I smirked. Why didn't you? Because I realized running wasn't the answer anymore, she admitted. I spent too long trying to escape the version of myself that hurt you. I didn't say anything, not because I had nothing to say, but because I didn't owe her any more explanations. James? She said, voice low. Do you think in another life maybe if I'd done things differently? I turned to her then, really looked at her, and I saw with pain the longing, the realization that she had broken something she couldn't put back together. Maybe, I said. But this isn't another life and we don't get redos, we only get better at making choices. She nodded, tears threatening but never falling. I hope you're loved now, she whispered. I hope someone sees you the way I should have. I see me now, I said. That's enough? She gave a trembling smile. You're not angry anymore, are you? No, I answered truthfully. I'm just done. She let out a shaky breath, and for a moment, I saw the weight finally settle into her shoulders, not as punishment, but as acceptance. She wasn't chasing redemption anymore, she was facing what was left of the road alone. Goodbye, James, she said, and I watched her walk away without feeling the need to follow. That was the last time I saw her in person, but not the last time I heard about her. Nathan sent me a photo 6 months later. She'd moved to Portland, started her own nonprofit helping women escape toxic workplaces. Her face was brighter in the picture, posture straighter, like she was finally growing into the version of herself I once believed she could be. And weirdly, I felt proud, not because she came back to me, but because she didn't, because she learned to rise without dragging me down. I deleted the photo after a few seconds, not because it hurt, but because it didn't anymore. I didn't need to hold on to anything that wasn't mine. As for me, life kept blooming in ways I never expected. I published a book, got invited to speak globally, and finally allowed myself to fall in love again. Not with a fantasy, not with someone who needed saving, but with a woman who saw me, truly saw me, and never made me beg for space in her life. Her name was Clara. She had a laugh that could melt bad days and a habit of falling asleep mid-documentary with her head on my shoulder. She never asked about my past, but one night, I told her anyway, not the long version, not the messy details, just the parts that mattered. She listened without interrupting, then kissed my temple and said, well, whoever she was, I'm glad she let you go. And for the first time, I believed it too. Letting go wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of finally writing one that was mine. Unfiltered, undiluted, honest. I don't hate Emily, I never did. I just stopped needing her to understand what she broke. Because I picked up the pieces and built something better, stronger, real. And if one day she walks past me again on a random street or at another conference, I'll smile, maybe nod, and keep walking, because closure doesn't always come with a grand speech or perfect timing. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment when you realize you haven't thought about them in days, and it feels like freedom. This is the part where people expect some big takeaway, some dramatic moral to wrap it all up, but the truth is simple. When someone shows you who they are during your darkest hour, believe them, and when you finally choose yourself, don't apologize for how brightly you shine without them. I was James Walker, once broken, now whole, not because someone put me back together, but because I finally stopped handing my pieces to the wrong people, and that made all the difference.